in the well-being of their children for education. But that's not a bad thing. Maybe because the level of affluence, right, has grown, right? I mean, like I mentioned just now, my father, humble beginning, etc., right? But now we can afford a bit more things, and because we love our children. In fact, I tell some people that we all work for our children. We spend that money back for our children. One thing that is a big difference is, I think Puan and Mustamir has alluded to, is technology, right? Technology has made a lot of difference. Again, I think if Mustamir said that Yahoo Google was available at the time, search engine, my time there was no such thing. It was all dial-up technology, and literally you had to go to the library, right, to do our work, right? Physical library, not online. We never had FaceTime chat with our parents. We never had WhatsApp video call with our parents. I had to call reverse charge. I don't know whether people now know what reverse charge is. Meaning that I have to call an operator, and the operator will check first with my father whether he wants to accept my call, before I can speak to my father, right? So, and that's a huge difference. And of course, in terms of being able to do online class, right? It's never, dreamt about before. And even online exam, how could one think about taking online exam? So I think parents, the focus, and technology, I think these are the two big drivers for what our children are different compared to ours before.
That's really interesting to hear. I actually, to be honest, I can't really relate to that since like I always get a call or I always get a message even from my grandmother regarding my exams, regarding my grades also. We've talked about you three educational journey. Maybe we could go back to the topic at hand, grooming the next generation of future leaders. So basically, we all know that you three have led the lifestyle and mindset of a successful leader. That brings me to my next question. Since I believe that every generation of kids have heard this very cliche question: what do you want to be when you grow up? I'm very sure that you three have also been asked that question by your parents when you were younger. What do you want to be? What do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to do when you grow up? That begs the question: would you say that you've always seen yourselves as becoming a corporate leader, or were you actually just striving to do something impactful, and becoming a corporate leader of your level was just a means to that end? Maybe Mr. Mustamir would like to answer that first.
Okay, Tariq, it's quite an interesting question for me. I mean, hopefully, I think my experience is a bit different in terms of deciding whether I want to go into the finance line, and for me, I think my experience is that I was very keen with this idea right at high school level already. I think my dad is actually a mechanical engineer, and that is actually very technical in nature. And then looking at his experience, he said it's difficult to climb the corporate ladder by becoming an engineer. And then he was giving me advice, because last time we always listen to your parents' advice, isn't it? I mean, you don't have any social media. He said that accountants or finance person within his organization always relatively do well, and at the end helming the organization. So like I said, like they eventually become the CFOs or CEOs of the organization, not him as an engineer. So that means he feels that he wants his son to actually do much better than him. So because the reason why is actually that is actually the case is that people with finance background or accountants, they normally have strong foundations about business through understanding the numbers. Because normally numbers don't lie, and unless someone actually cooked the books. But even if someone actually cooked the books, if you have actually a strong foundation in finance or accounting, you can easily detect something which is actually not right based on the trend in numbers. So when you read financial statements, normally you are actually reading a corporate storybook. So for me, the experience starts very early. When I was 15, 16, my father actually bring back hard copies, corporate annual reports from his office. And normally parents last time always buy shares, isn't it? Because they are really into stock market last time. And normally every year you get through the mail annual reports coming to your house. And so what I did at that point in time, I know it's boring, but that's what actually happened to me. I mean, I was actually reading what we call company financial statements when I was 16. Okay, and then after that, what I was actually very interested when I read annual report is that I like to see the board and the management pictures and read their profiles to see what kind of educational and work background to be successful at their level. So at that point in time, when I was reading a lot of their backgrounds, I was convinced that I want to become an accountant because a lot of them have finance background. Okay, those are 20, 30 years ago. I mean, I'm not talking about now. So I'm just talking about my experience. So it was no turning back for me. Like at Form 4, I was already taking up principal account for SPM. And then I read accounting at university, and even did the professional accounting qualification in the UK. I mean, because sometimes it's good to have visibility of what you want in life, so that you can actually chart your career path accordingly, right? Earlier on, so that you know when you want to move on after getting certain level of experience, and start talking to your boss that you want to do what you want to do next in order to achieve your ultimate goal. For me, even at that point in time, what I wanted to become a partner at audit firm. That was my ultimate goal. So, but not to become a CFO in a corporate. So if I was not doing this job, I mean, hopefully I'm only actually an audit partner in an audit firm, because I think, that's where we are actually short as far as Bumi's strength is concerned, partners in audit firm. So that's why I was very keen to go into that line. But of course, you can only plan, but God will decide in terms of what happened in your life. Ultimately, I had the opportunity to actually go into a corporate after I left Bank Negara. So I joined Darby, and I've been with Darby ever since, about 16, 17 years ago. And hopefully, God willing, I'll have an opportunity to lead an organization like what Dato Khairussaleh is actually doing now after my CFO experience. Okay, Tariq, back to you.
Wow, that's really impressive. Hearing that you've, from such a young age, you've already known what you want to do in your life. Many of us, even by the time we're 20, middle of our 20s, also don't know what we actually want to do with our lives, actually. So it's really impressive. By the time you were 16, you know what you want to do with your life.
So just read annual reports, then you know what to become.
Maybe Dato Khairussaleh could relate to that, maybe because you are also.
I cannot relate to that. I did not read annual report when I was in high school. I was just interested in cutting frog in our biology lab. Right. I took science stream, right? And I got A's in physics and chemistry and biology. But again, I could have been a doctor, but again, destiny, you cannot predict that. And the scholarship actually determined quite a lot of things, right? But I always believe in, and I never imagined to be a CEO, at that time. Right. At that time, it was just about, okay, graduate, just get a job, buy a car, able to pay rent every month because, I stay in KL and my family was in Johor, and have time with friends, good time with friends. That's it. Right. But I also believe that sometimes you must be in the right place at the right time, right? I mean, again, it's about qada dan qadar, right, and destiny. You try your best, but being in the right place at the right time, and do whatever that is. Do your best in whatever you do. I firmly believe that, and I share this whenever, even my chat session with my staff. And people will notice you, right? If you're good in what you do, people will notice you. I think Puan also mentioned just now, education, formal education is just a foundation, right? It sets a good foundation and of course a good entry point. But beyond that, right, it's how you perform on your own in the workplace, right? And how do you differentiate yourselves from other people, right? And that's how I think we should differentiate ourselves. Just understand your mandate, i.e. what you're supposed to do your best, right? And inshallah, people will notice you. One thing that I also sometimes advise even my staff, right? Don't try to pretend to be who you're not, right? People always say that I am an introvert, right? But that's fine. I am not going to, pretend that I am an extrovert. But by knowing who you are and using your strengths, right, doing your best wherever you do, whatever you do, I think you can go far. I'll stop there.
That's really good to hear. I think I for one have also hold that kind of value, not selling out, being honest to yourself, being true to yourself, and by being true to yourself, others would accept you more easily in the process. I also like to hear what Puan Siti would like to say on the matter, like when your parents ask, what do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to do with your life?
Thank you, Tariq. Well, first of all, I just want to say Amin to Mustamir's dua that one day I'm sure he will make a great corporate leader. So I'll say Amin to that. And for one, I think I have like I mentioned, I'm just a kampong person, right? My parents are very simple parents. I don't think I was ever even asked what I would like to be when I was small. Like, Dato Khairussaleh was telling us earlier how parents then were different, especially in the kind of setup that in the kind of setting that I was growing up. I mean, my parents did not really ask or did not even know exactly what path I would take in life. But coming also to another point he raised about how scholarship actually determined, at least at that point in time, in major part what you would be doing in the future. I think when I was offered to do politics by JPA after SPM, that kind of like a more or less set the path for me. And also coming from the background that I that I've had, I was really part of the community. I think I was really I always feel that that's where I would always be, then, and the kind of things that I would do should be able to give back, as cliched as this may sound. I always have that strong sense of wanting to give back to the people around me, to the community that I was raised in, the people that I grew up with. I think that was very key for me. So although I wasn't really sure what politics would do, I mean, at that point in time, I wanted to do law, because law, like you said, I would become a lawyer. Then I would have an opportunity to work somewhere and then, give back to the society and things like that. But when I was given politics, I more or less that threw me in quite an uncertain thought at first, but I thought, okay, yes, I do need this scholarship. I would need to accept it, and I did, and I did, and then I didn't really fall in love with it until I actually went to uni. Even when I was doing my A-levels, it was still just normal, accounting, maths, economics. So more or less such a, that would give you a broader kind of like an opportunity ahead. But the sponsor was adamant that I would take up politics. So I did. And and that had more or less taken me in one way or another to where I am right now. So I how to put it, yeah, so basically, I mean, for those of you who kind of like Cik Mustamir, like really know exactly what you will be doing in the future, like existing, you're already reading financial reports and annual reports and things like that, then what to do, those things really are helpful, to have a plan. It's very good, if you already have a good plan, then cherish that and take comfort in that. And as I said earlier, good plans well executed will most likely lead to a very good outcome, inshallah. But for those of you who still don't, I think I'm one of those people, I believe that you will figure it out somehow. That sometimes, uncertainties and not knowing, take us through the most amazing journeys. I always believe in that, and so surprise yourself. As long as you always give your best to everything, that's very important. And you know who you want to be, what kind of person, and then what will you give back to the world. That's important to me, because I do always need to feel that I'm although I may not creating a dent in the universe somewhere, I want to see that I'm impacting something in my life. Then I think if you know that, then things will somehow find their way to you, inshallah. No, if I could just share a little bit more. I mean, I've done, like, of course, I mean, having after I graduated the first time, I went to Shell, but that's just because they came to uni, they did the mid-round interviews and everything, and then I got accepted. So having a job even before you sat for your final exams, having a job even before you graduated was just okay. That's it. That's my life. It's set. So I came back after graduation and joined Shell. I received an offer from the government for a PTD post, but I declined it. Even though at first I was so keen on politics, I declined it because I said, oh gosh, government was the Shell. You kind of right. You kind of know the answer. It's kind of sorted for you, but I couldn't quite settle in that job. So I was in Shell for I think less than a year. Then that's when I applied for the Rhodes Scholarship, and somehow, I didn't really know what took me to Rhodes Scholarship, really, to be honest. But I felt that I wasn't done yet. I felt that I wasn't able to just settle into something yet. So I applied for the scholarship. Then when I was offered, and I could just basically go to Oxford to do anything that I would like to, I said, okay, I've always wanted to do PPE. I know it's another degree, so but it's okay. So I ended up doing a second degree. And that's how, when you're interviewing for roles and whatnot, people started using words like saving the world, changing the world, and that sort of things, and they throwing that kind of phrases at you, and you that's when I was like, okay, really, I do need to do something that leads to that, and so Oxford PPE would be an easy path to, say, the UN or World Bank, something like that. Or even politics, I was thinking, as we all know, many, British prime ministers and ministers were actually PPE students first. And I said, okay, fine, I would bring myself back to that path. But things don't always that Dato and also Cik Mustamir were saying. Ultimately, you can plan, but everything is what's already yours would come to you, will find its way to you anyway, and things would fall into places the way that they've been planned, not by you, but by someone else, by our creator ultimately. And sometimes you're fortunate enough that that unplanned, unexpected path actually take us to something more meaningful. And that's how I more or less ended up in McKinsey, because I didn't even know at that point in time what McKinsey was about, what management consulting was about. I was in Oxford. I knew at that point in time I wanted to go to the UN or to the World Bank, but then that kind of changed, because if I had wanted to be with them, I would like to be at the headquarters. But but I must come back to Malaysia. And McKinsey with an office in Kuala Lumpur was the second best option. And that, I think, then that led me to consulting, and then ultimately it led me to public sector consulting, and that, I believe, till today, that gave me the fundamentals that I need to actually to give back and do things that I love most, and the opportunity to give back without really having to be part of the system in one way or another, for myself, has been more impactful, for sure. I mean, I don't have to be in the government to actually work with the government and deliver impact for the government. So yeah, so that's a much lengthier version of what it should be, but yeah.
That's really interesting to hear. Well, knowing that you three have been captains of industry and have become leaders of companies and such, what is your advice to young leaders on the kind of mindset and lifestyle that they should have in their career and life? Maybe Dato Khairussaleh could speak a little bit on that. Maybe could share with us the advice he gave his subordinates in RHB, maybe.
Yeah, what I see young people now, right? They're just impatient. They want to do something and then that's it. They want to move on to another new thing, right? So my advice to them, and maybe to all the audience here, is be patient. You need to kind of build your reputation in a particular area, right? Don't jump so often to so many places, yeah, so that you are able to get people to know you, right? So build a brand, for example, in a particular place, yeah. So be patient, build a brand. I mentioned just now, be yourself, right? Don't try to be someone you're not, right? I mean, I remember when I was also younger, right? Oh, we try to be perfect, right? We try to be superstar. We try to be, the best person that we can be, right? But at this age, I'm the oldest here. I have to accept that I'm not perfect, right? So my advice again is, it's okay not to be perfect, right? But know who you are, know what you can do, yeah. And I come back to the point just now, whatever you do, understand your mandate, understand what you are hired to do in that position, right? And it's easy for you then to perform your work and try to do it the best possible. And I am very confident that people surrounding you, including your bosses, will notice you, right? And persevere, right? You will have challenges, you will have roadblocks, but this is why I say be patient, but must persevere. Don't stress out on what we should do. Is again, we do the best, but don't get stressed out on things that you cannot control, right? You can go crazy again if you try to be perfect, and even if you try to change things that you cannot control, right? Yeah. So maybe these are some of the quick advice that I would like to share, and that's what I normally tell RHBNs as well, about what do they need to think about, right? When they are at their workplace. Yeah.
Well, I for one can vouch for the impatient part. Really, even my family is also a very business-minded family. We run our own business, and my aunts and my grandmother, who are also managers of the business, have also said the same thing. What Dato Khairussaleh have said about my generation being impatient. Yeah, I think that being patient is really the most important thing lah when you start in your career. Maybe Mr. Mustamir could also share his advice that he shared with maybe his subordinates in Sime Darby.
Yeah, thanks, Tariq. I think I would like to echo on some of the points which Dato Khairussaleh has just mentioned earlier. I think in terms of mindset and lifestyle in the younger generation career, I think one of the advice that I would like to give is not to rise too fast. Okay, you should actually learn the ropes first. Do the mundane stuff and the uninteresting work given to you by your bosses. Okay, because this will definitely build your character. Okay, sometimes you have to make coffee for people. Do that. I did that for the first 3 months when I was doing my audit work in UK. And I have no issue with that. And then doing 3 months of photocopying. That really builds your character. Because the faster you rise, the harder the fall sometimes. So sometimes it's good to be slow and steady. You rise up gradually with the experience that you've garnered along the way, and be a better principled person, as opposed to rushing to rise to the top to make a lot of money. Okay, and that is when the problems start to happen. Okay, the issue of integrity, ethics come into the question. Okay. Learning from interacting with different people also is critical. Okay, in this day and age, and you should take the best examples out of them. I mean, that will be time for you to become a leader and lead an organization and even the country. So there's nothing to rush. I mean, yes, there are situations where people becoming CEOs at 35 years old, for example, and that happens before in the early parts of corporate Malaysia, and it can still happen now, but not for everybody. Okay, but sometimes when you rise, when you are 35, you don't make all the way until you're 60. Okay, you won't. I mean, something will happen, and God willing, hopefully, it won't happen to you. Okay, I mean, you should have the right mindset, the right integrity and ethics to do your job, and like what Dato Khair is saying, that you know your mandate and stick to that, and then don't try to be too clever, and then what you call do the shortcut way of doing things and end up in trouble. So that's my major advice based on what I've seen happening and some of my own peers and colleagues, which I've seen have to go through as part of their career. Back to you, Tariq.
Tariq, can I just add one more thing before Puan comes in?
Yeah, sure.
It's important to start building network, right? From young. So even when you start working, right? Build network, and network can be formal and can be informal, right? When I say formal, your customers. So when I was starting in a bank, right? I was like a relationship manager, for corporate banking, and I got a lot of customers. Many of these customers now are my friends. Few of customers were my bosses, right? And it doesn't hurt to start building the network in the formal network, right? So the other point is informal network, right? This is friends or even family. I think it's good to build informal network so that they can be your sounding board also beyond your work environment, right? You can get sounding board on personal things. You can get sounding board on work things, right, from your friends. So start building that network as well, right? And of course, one thing I learned is the family network, right? So I got married, and I was lucky that I think my wife was very, very helpful in providing me advice, right? So like management consultant, McKinsey, I have to pay, but advice from my wife is free. But it's always good advice. Yeah.
Well, hearing that, I think I should find a wife that is very full of advice also, at the same as Dato Khairussaleh. Speaking about like what Mr. Mustamir said about integrity, we'll talk about that in the following minutes also. We also like to hear the advice that Puan Siti would share with us.
Well, I think not coming from the corporate sector, or being in consulting is actually a little bit of a different ball game. I would like to think, we are not really allowed to take our time in consulting. We have a policy of up and out. You are expected to move up the ladder really fast. You are expected to learn extremely fast. And you are expected to move up. If you don't move up, you are out. It's just as simple as that. In a way, it's a more brutal environment. But the point about taking your time to learn and taking your time to give to give your best at the very beginning of things is extremely crucial. No matter where you are. And whether you are in consulting or in the corporate sector, that applies. That applies wherever you go. You need to always be willing to learn. You need to always be doing the best that you can. In places like McKinsey, if you join as a business analyst, you're already expected to perform as an associate. If you join as an associate, you're expected to perform as a senior EM and things like that. So you are never, just being allowed to be yourself. Your bars is always, 2 steps ahead of you, and it's a brutal environment to say the least. But they give you all the support. I never had to make coffee or anything for people. I was having meeting with ministers and CEOs even when I just joined for a month. That's that kind of environment. So it builds a kind of fundamentals in you. Not to say that it's better or worse or anything like that, but it's a different path. So if you're more kind of like if you're not a very patient person, if you're the kind of who needs to just go up, that sort of thing, and you also need to be doing different sectors, different industries, learning different things every few months, then that potentially can be a better place for you as well in that sense. But again, having said that, I think 3 things. I think I caught this from what they've mentioned earlier. One is that wherever you want to be, just really stay true to yourself. Find that definition of yourself. Who you really are, and that's extremely important. Having that unfailing sense of self is very important. It's not to say that I want to just be me. I don't care what other people think about me. When you say that you want to just be yourself, you have the responsibility to be the best of yourself. You need to be able to listen to what others say. You need to be able to innovate and change, and you need to also be able to equip yourself so that you can be the best version of yourself. So that's very important. So I've been picking this up from what they've said. I think to build on that, when I was in McKinsey, when I first joined McKinsey, I've always been dressed like this, even when I was doing Rhodes Scholarship as well. People would come to me and ask, did you get accepted into the scholarship looking like that? Or did you actually join McKinsey starting like this? And this always refer to a kind of presentation that I bring as a person. Maybe I wear scarf, and that shows that I am a Muslim. And this is nothing to do with a religion or nothing ideological or anything like that. But I think be confident enough to go into something as yourself. That's the sure way that you can build a differentiation. Your competitive edge is just by being yourself. Everyone else, as cliched as this may sound, everyone else is already taken. So it's important to try not to be like others, and do not be scared, do not be embarrassed. I think to be different, but equip yourself. Read as much as you can. Be as interesting as you can. Do things that that many other people have not done, so that you can really continue to hold the flag and say I'm being myself. It's no point being yourself if yourself is just that sort of bland kind of thing, that everybody is more or less like yourself anyway. So once you decide to be yourself, differentiate yourself, build that as a differentiating factor, as a competitive edge for yourself. And secondly, I think apart from being yourself, the second thing is that I think like what Dato and Cik Mustamir are saying, give your best, as it is. I think naturally our lives are built in stages. We go through each stage of our life. At each different stage of our life, we need to be able to say, this is my best at this point in time. And you want to be able to look back at that stage of your life and say that that's it. I have no regrets. No what ifs, no should have. I really did the best that I could. And you move on to the next stage. And at each of these, at each stage, I guess also your different stage, or rather your definition of what success might be, may also differ, and that's fine. You can have different meaning to success. Not success doesn't mean going to a major, or rather the best university in the world, or joining what arguably the best consulting firm in the world, or the best corporate firm in the world. That sort of thing. There's no one path to success. That's what we all need to understand, and not look down on any other paths that differ from yours. That's truly key, I think, to me. But always give your best. Always feel that you don't have to look back with regrets and thinking that, oh yeah, I should have done better for my SPN. Yeah, maybe I should have done better for my university. So don't get into that later on in your life. And I think the third one is that knowing what is your priority. I think that's very key. But if you are, going to be successful in life, going what's most important to you, and what's most important to the people who matter most around you. That is that's key. You need to be able to how to put it? You need to be able to, because you want to give your best at everything, but you can't give your best to so many things at the same time. Being able to prioritize is key then. So three things: be yourself, give your best, and prioritize what is most important to you. That should take you somewhere, inshallah.
That's really eye-opening. And to reiterate what you said in the beginning about you not just being a consultant isn't just this job. It also means that you have to do another job that you didn't really expect at the start. I think that even people my age have also experienced that. My friends who are working in editorial firms are not just writing, but they're also making the posters, making the promotions. They're doing everything more than their work described to them. Well, we've talked about your educational journey, the lifestyle, and the mindset that you would want in the leaders of today and tomorrow. I also like to ask, since I know you three have been very successful in the office, maybe you could also share how you became successful at home. By saying that, I mean, how do you harmonize these two very different but very pivotal things in life, your work and your family? Maybe Puan Siti could give her thoughts on that first.
Okay. Well, wow. I think I for the past many years, actually, since I left McKinsey, all the other jobs that I have undertaken have been done as part-time or freelancer, to put it that way. While all the companies that I was kind of attached to were kind enough to consider me as part of the permanent team, I had consciously decided that full-time work was not for me. I think at one point in my life, I was made to feel that I had to choose between being an amazing consultant and being a good mom, at least, and it wasn't possible for me to be both, and I had chosen the latter. It wasn't an easy decision, I guess, but knowing what mattered most to me, I think I talked earlier about prioritizing. What mattered most to me then, and I think what still matters most to me now, made it clear to me what I had to prioritize, and I had fought very hard to actually keep that. I must say that, well, of course, I know I had put many things professionally aside to ensure that I could at least try to be a good mother. I not really regretted the decision. Well, maybe sometimes when the kids don't listen to me so much and they start arguing and whatnot. But So whenever I get a consulting offer anywhere, a consulting job at somewhere away from home now, basically the first consideration is always how long will I be away? How many times will I get to see the children? How many times, I can fly home? I was remember being based in Riyadh for quite some time, and I was actually flying home every weekend. And that was a bit insane, I guess, but I had to make it work because that's important to me. However, having said that, I think there's no one right way to do this. I'm basically personally and am always so inspired and in awe of many parents out there, especially mothers, not to undermine the roles of fathers and the challenges they face for sure, but I believe it's always harder for mothers somehow, so I envy or rather even in awe of those who are successful at work, but also really they could become contributing members of the society, while also managing a beautiful family and raising really amazing kids. So there's no one way to doing this. I always wish that I could be more like them, people who are out there leading the world and also leading their family and raising such beautiful kids and all that. But knowing ourselves, it also means that we understand our limitations, and that's that for me. I mean, from early on, I understood well what were my limitations, and a full-time job wasn't something I could cope with, especially not with the kind of work that I had wanted to do, and the kind of presence that I would like to give my children, and so while while I've mostly called myself a full-time mom in the past 20 years, I got to be there for my children, being fully part of their growing up years. I still, I think, because staying true to what I believe in, I think helped, because I had then also still be given opportunities to work on some of the most interesting projects and be allowed to be a contributing member of the society in little ways that I could manage. And yeah, so I guess I couldn't really ask for more. I'm sure that Dato Khairul and Mustamir would have it much harder in that sense, being where they are now. Yeah, I think.
That's really inspiring to hear. I'm really glad that you decided to share your experience with that. Maybe we could also hear from Mr. Mustamir.
Thanks, Tariq. For me, in terms of career and family, I didn't actually have a balanced career and family life at the beginning. I was actually working very long hours every day until 10 to 11 p.m. at night, and even sleeping in the office. So I have to actually thank my wife for her sacrifice during the period when the children was young, when they were, say, up to 5 years old. So I was not a good father then. But I do spend quality weekends with the children to make up the time, and also enjoy our holidays together. But now things are more stable when you move up the ranks. Okay, I have people to do the detail work for me, but I'm still responsible on the outcome and the decision to be made. Okay, I mean, I'm taking the opportunity now to do whatever I can to advise my children now in their next steps in life. I think, and over the last 18 months, I think my experience working is totally different now. I mean, I'm working from home, able to see everybody every day. For the last 18 months, it's surreal. It's very different. Being that able to have lunch, able to have dinner together with family, and talks about things and what they have to go through in their day-to-day classes, and because they are in boarding school, normally we don't talk to our children, isn't it? But now I'm able to actually be the shoulder to cry on if they have difficult things going through in their life at school, difficult teachers, problems with friends and all that. I mean, I don't have that opportunity when I was actually growing up. So looking at it, this pandemic, this MCO actually provide us with a different experience. about life. And on the one hand, I actually appreciate what the different terms of what we have to go through now. But of course, it's actually not good for the economy and all that. So that's a different discussion altogether. But we can never have the best of both worlds sometimes in life. Okay, back to you, Tariq.
Well, I for one can vouch for what Mr. Mustamir said about starting your career and having to spend late nights away from the family. I've also experienced the same thing with what Mr. Mustamir's kids have experienced. My mother being away from the house up and very late nights and not coming back home at night. And I can say that I'm glad to hear that what Mr. Mustamir said about his parents not really taking notice of his personal life. I'm glad to hear that Mr. Mustamir has ended that cycle by having a very healthy relationship with his kids. I think that every parent, especially to those who are listening to us today, should really take that into account. With repairing or improving their relationship with their kids. Maybe Dato Khairussaleh could also add on to what Mr. Mustamir said so far.
Yeah, it's work hard is a must when you move up, right? Or you start working. There's no two ways about it. Of course, when you are single, you don't have a lot of obligations and responsibilities, right? But as you start to get married with kids, then the priorities change. And again, in my case, when we had our third child, my wife, decided to take care of the kids full time, right? Which was I was very what do you call it? Grateful for, because I also work long hours. In fact, now it's less. Until when I was in Maybank, like Group CFO, for example, when we started the transformation, literally every day we will start at about 8 a.m. We go back at 11 at night, and there will be meetings even that will go until 3 a.m. And then we'll just tell everyone else, okay, I'll see you later, right? Because we'll see back again everyone at 8 a.m. And there was a time when I remember, I managed to come back early on one of those days, right? About 6 p.m. And when I reach home, my daughter says, why you come back so early? So it was so apparent that, I had missed home quite a bit, But to Mustamir's point, as you move up the ladder, and if you grow older, especially, right, you need to make a difference, right? You cannot be doing those things, continuously. You will burn out. That's why, as people move up the ladder, you need to put in place people, you need to put in place system, you need to delegate things, right? So that you can do, a bit more thinking about, what needs to be done, going forward. And that's an important aspect of being in a corporate, right? So now, I try to be in office by 8:30. I've started to go back to the office now, even though pandemic is still there, because I am probably more effective in the office. But by 7 p.m. I said, that's it, right? That's it. I am old, but I'm going to be 54 tomorrow. I need to re-energize, right? And beyond 7 now is going to be incremental, margin of utility or even depreciating utility, right? So there's no point in kidding myself, sleep early, things like that. But again, weekend has to be with family, even during weekdays, I make a point to call my wife in the evening, even though I will see her, later. I just, say maybe by 6 p.m., about 7 p.m. before I leave office, I just pick up the call, etc. So she can hear my voice, and obviously it's about, sometimes about reporting. But it's good to have that touch, right? Good to have that touch, even though, you're at work. And I used to, when I was younger, I used to spend my time to teach my kids, especially my daughter. But I didn't have patience. I think it's probably best to leave teaching kids to your wife or other people. But again, as you move up the ladder, you just don't have that time. But to spend so much time, right? But you keep track of their development. You take quality time, right? To say eat dinner, breakfast together, or as I think Mustamir also said, go holiday together. Yeah.
Maybe I just want to add to that, actually, just to share my part of the pain of starting a career. So especially in consulting, I mean, I remember, having heard the stories about not going home and all that. I remember how whenever we were working on a project, there was a time when Dato Khairussaleh was saying he would start at 8 and would leave home at 11. We would start at 7, we would leave home at 3 a.m. and then repeat, for 6 months. And that's the kind of craziness we went through. There were times when I would at midnight I would call my husband and say, okay, I'm about to go home. We were at the Twin Towers. So I say, oh, midnight now, I'm ready to go home. Then he would come at, maybe I would call 11:30, and then he would come by midnight. He would be there, and then I would find him sleeping in the car park in KLCC at 3 a.m. when I walked down to the car. And finally could get home just to be back in the office again at 7:30 the next day. And that's the kind of things that would happen to you, when you work. I think that's to be expected. I joined McKinsey when I was already a young mom. I took almost a year from the time I was offered to the time that I joined to have a baby. When I joined, he was 4 months old. And it was extremely difficult to manage that kind of lifestyle, a work style with the life as a new mom, I guess. So that person who had wanted to change the world just a year ago suddenly became just somebody who wanted to be a mother, that sort of thing. But yes, things like that could happen and could be expected anywhere, whether you are in consulting or in the corporate sector. So be prepared to make early sacrifices, in life. Yeah.
Well, I think that even my friends back in College and Saad have had a little bit of a taste of working that kind of scheduling. Actually, waking we used to wake up at subuh, and then we would go straight to after our prayers, we would go straight to the academic block to study up until 11, 12 in the morning for our SPM exams. And on a more personal note, I would say that knowing you three through our conversations and through my friends who are also your children, I would like to think that in my experience, your children are actually the biggest inspiration to me. Knowing because your children have exceeded a lot of expectations, going to the best schools and all. Even those who are younger than me, like Puan Siti, Suhaila's second son, he's actually my junior back in KOS, but he's actually a very big inspiration to me to become better in academics, in sports and the like. That's what I wanted to personally tell you all that
I hope Taufik hasn't paid you to say that.
No. This is all very very honest of me, actually. I think that you've done a great job in the office and at home. To the next question. Did you three actually encourage your children to follow in your footsteps, or did you just simply let them chart their own path for success? Maybe we could hear more on that by Dato Khairussaleh.
I guess seeing what I do may have some sort of influence, right? At work, etc. My daughter just graduated in accounting and finance. My second son also wants to do accounting and finance. I did not force him. In fact, I asked him to do something else, but he said he wants to be an accountant also. So, so I think I think for us it's about guiding, right? What are the options? But as I said, I think maybe seeing what I do and what I, what I do, especially, that could have some influence on them. But it's not about forcing them, lah, right? And I guess if they have made up their mind, it's about then, coaching them to do what best in that particular area. I hope my third son will not do accounting and finance. I hope he will do something very, very different from what the other two are doing. But to your question, right? It's about us as parents guiding them and for them to choose what they want to do, and and we support them to be the best in the area that they want to do.
Maybe Mr. Mustamir could also share his experience on the matter.
I mean, somehow, none of my children actually want to take up as a profession, following my footpath. My footpath. I mean, and I'm not forcing them to, because I know it is tough in terms of passing professional exams, long working hours to train as auditors, and the work is actually mundane at the beginning. But it's only get interesting after you start managing your own audit after 4 to 5 years. So as much as I want, I would like them decide in terms of what degree that they want to take. But my general advice to them is always that having some economics and finance background is very, very useful in their future adult life. Okay, not accounting, but they need to know a bit about economics and finance so that they know what's happening in the country. Okay, and that's key if you want to actually develop future leaders for Malaysia. So a combination degree is one alternative approach. So if you don't want to do accounting, I said, do say economics and finance. If you like mathematics, make sure you do mathematics and economics. And then if you want to go into politics, okay, if you're not as clever as Puan Siti Suhaila, to do PPE in Oxford, you can do PPE in other universities, or say government and politics elsewhere. And you can also do, say, economics and management. But now, in this day and age, there's a lot of new areas of interest, okay, that people are talking about, okay, and one way of actually doing that is basically to take up modules in your university degree. Say if you actually doing economics, but there are modules that you can actually take, which is actually very current in terms of what's actually happening in the world. People are currently talking about cryptocurrency, data science, data analytics, business analytics, cybersecurity. You don't have to take a degree on this. Okay, I mean, you should take a normal degree, but if you have an opportunity, if the school actually or your uni actually have a module on this, learn about it. Now, even you don't take a degree in money and banking, but there is a module about money and banking if you were to take economics, and take those kind of modules, so that it will be very relevant to your working life in the future. But say, for example, you're really interested in data science, for example, then you can actually specialize in this area and do a postgraduate or a master program on cryptocurrency or data science. So that will be my advice to them. And of course, because of this day of pandemic, there are degree courses on pharmacology. Maybe you want to do a vaccine for future pandemic. So it's an in thing currently. People going into psychology. I mean, not many Malaysians actually do a psychology degree, but with what's happening now, I think there's a lot of things to address with regards to mental health issue. So people are going into doing a psychology degree, which there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, and again, with all this tech development in the world now, people are also looking at degree in terms of in game design. If you want to become a what you call a gamer developer, so people are taking degree in game design. But that's very, very specialized. But then you can also go into the normal computer science, software engineering. But I don't know whether my children are actually inclined to do any of this. But these are something that we call the young adults currently thinking about doing a degree might actually consider lah. But accounting, economics, law will always be there to give you a strong foundation in managing your everyday life later on. And that will be my advice lah. So whether my children follow it or not, I will leave it to them. But for the benefit of the masses, that will be my advice if you guys want to actually take it.
Yeah, I actually agree about the economics part, because economics is such a general thing that you should know. You know, like it should be general knowledge to know the politics and the economics that is happening in our country. Lastly, I would also like to ask Puan Siti her experience in the matter.
I think more or less, I'm fully agreeable with Dato Khairussaleh and Encik Mustamir that ultimately, as a parent, our role is to guide them, to support them, to show them good examples and what can be achieved. When you put your heart into something, so ultimately, whether they would do things similar to what I've done. I would leave it to them. I can see that potentially Taki, my first one is rather interested in it, but definitely not for the second and third. But ultimately, our roles as a parents, I think it's just to really, instill in them that ultimately the decision should be theirs alone. They cannot look to us to make that kind of decisions for them. Maybe some parents who know really well, who've been there and done that, they are able to do it, to encourage them towards a certain path. But ultimately, that decision is theirs to make. I mean, and it's also sometimes as parents we want them to protect them from failures and from mistakes in life, because potentially maybe we had gone through them ourselves. But the world doesn't work that way. You cannot protect they are individuals in their own right, so I guess they must also learn to make their own mistakes and their own failures in life, and take their own decisions. Ultimately, if they are, I guess, if they can be happy and then they can live life with dignity and kindness towards themselves and towards others, that would be good. So I wouldn't really say that do this or do that. But if you were to ask me, would I encourage young people to join management consulting? Then I think the answer would be a sounding yes. I really encourage young people to do management consulting. I believe that good management consulting firms, the likes of McKinsey and BCG. I may be biased because I don't know that many, but I think they are able to develop in one, a set of very strong frameworks, like fundamental frameworks. I think for just the basic things, you can also learn this in the corporate sector or anywhere else, but it's emphasized more in management consulting. So things like cohesive critical thinking, deep and precise analytical skill, structured problem solving. Those are things that we live by and live with, and I think these frameworks, these fundamentals will be of most benefit wherever a life takes you, and if like me, you also like different challenges, different work environments every now and then. Consulting allows you to do that slightly more easily than being in the corporate sector. You do work across various sectors with such a broad spectrum of clients, and engaging with a wide range of stakeholders, always. So yes, I would encourage young people to look into management consulting.
Well, that's really interesting to hear. I agree with what you say about you not wanting them to fail or things like that. I believe that most parents, especially to those who are joining us today, would agree that they are just simply, their goal is just to simply not let their children fail where they have failed, where they just want to make sure that their children are the best version that they can be. I guess we have like one time for just one more question. Before you three retire, well, maybe this is not so applicable to Puan Siti. What would you say the kind of impact that you are most proud of, or is there a goal in your career that you are still striving for before you retire? We really like to hear from Dato Khairussaleh.
Yeah, I think about retirement every day now, right? As I reach this age, and you really want to think about what next in your life, right? And I have a discussion about this regularly with my wife. My wife always tells me that I cannot retire without working, so I guess I still have to do something. But I think from an organization point of view, right? It's about trying to make the organization sustainable, right? A lot of people, in fact, my staff ask me, right? What is the legacy that you want to be known for, and what you have done, as far as good things in RHB, for example. I said it's not for me to say, right? It's for people to see and say, and hopefully when I leave the organization, then I can reflect back and see the good things that have happened. I enjoy, well, not enjoy, but I really cherish some moments. For example, when I was in Maybank, right? So I was finance group CFO. I hired people. I hired a financial controller, and that was back in 2008, 2009. And like 3 years ago, right? For example, this guy, or out of the blue, we have not been in contact. Suddenly texted me to say, Dato, thank you. Right? Thank you for giving me the opportunity. Thank you for grooming me to be where I am, right? And thank you, for all the guidance. I've now been offered a job, and I will join another bank as a group CFO, right? To me, that's top lah, right? That's the best thing that I could ever imagine about the impact I've made, right? Similarly, when I was in Indonesia, I resigned, right? So they threw me a farewell, party, and there were many staff, etc. And as I was giving my speech, I was wondering why these two lady staff were crying. They were crying, and after my speech and after the event, etc., the formal event, I asked them, why you cry, right? Bu, why napa nangis kan? So he said, we appreciated what you've done. We will miss you, right? So in my view, to me, these are the kinds of things, in my view, that I will allow other people to appreciate what you have done, but not for me to speak and shout about, right? And I think in my position, more and more, we are not just looking about profit, right? We are not just looking about bottom line, right? Or growth in business, right? We are also looking about the other two P's, right? As they call it, the people and the planet, right? Or on the people side, right? Again, those were some examples, but this COVID-19 thing again is a major thing that has made me think about the things that we have to do for our staff, right? In our case alone, we had 12 people who passed away from COVID-19, right? And there was this one guy in Indonesia, our staff, and I knew this guy very well, and he just joined me. He was actually with me as head of operations when I was in Indonesia, many years ago. But I decided to hire him end of last year, and I was waiting for him to be certified, right, as fit and proper by the regulator in Malaysia. And that day I texted to him, Pak Gas, his name, when can you be certified? So it took him a few hours to respond. Then when he responded, he say, I'm still waiting, but sorry, Dato, I could not respond to you because I'm in hospital. I have just contracted COVID. And that was the last time I heard from him until on Sunday morning. I heard, when I opened up my WhatsApp, people informed me that he passed away. Right. What I regretted was not being able to give him the final farewell, for example, right? Etc. But as an organization, I started a drive to, of course, company will contribute to the family, but as an organization, we invited everyone to contribute to a fund to help the family of our staff who have passed away from COVID-19, and then give them some money, because we have got amongst the 12, 3 security guards, right? And these people, the family depended on this staff, right, for their bread and butter. So to me, this is something that, again, more and more, if you ask me, we should be looking at, right, in terms of helping our own staff. And then the other part I talk about planet is about the community, right? We have spent quite a bit of money actually the last 1 year. I think close to 4 million, right, just to help the B40, as we call it, right? We try to shout about it, but I think a lot of things are not written in terms of looking for single family. I think a lot of single families are worst hit in the Klang Valley, right? Not necessarily, sorry, that one is not in Kelantan, etc., because they are the urban poor, right? And they needed more help than those things. So so if you ask me in short, it's about trying to do things beyond just profit, right? But trying to see how you can make a good impression on your employees and good impression on the people surrounding you. Yeah, thanks.
All right, thanks, Dato Khairussaleh. Mr. Mustamir, would you like to interject any thoughts into that?
I mean, if the question is about impact that I actually am proud of, and what else that I want to see or do before I actually leave the world. I mean, hopefully, as my role as a leader in my organization, I hope I have actually trained enough people, okay, especially the local accountants, to be the next generation of leaders in the company. I mean, and on a personal note, I hope I've made enough impactful decision or right decision to grow, expand the company for future generations to benefit, especially being in Darby. We are 110 years old company, and hopefully there'll be 100 years more in future after I left the company. And finally, when I retire, I hope I do have opportunity to sit on the board of companies so that I can further impart my knowledge to steer the next generations of corporate leaders in running a good company. So ultimately, that's actually my aim. Okay. Thanks.
Siti, do you have any impact that you've made for McKinsey or for Shell, for the other companies that you are most proud of?
Well, I think two things to this. So one is as a consultant, as a public sector consultant, and secondly, I guess just as a person, because again, like what Mustamir had shared earlier, I think as a consultant, definitely creating impact on the ground is extremely key for us. That's how our performance is actually measured, and we certainly have various ways of measuring this impact, whether it's economic or social impacts, and how what we've done left kind of like make a change for the better in that sense in the lives of people, but some of them can be extremely complicated. Maybe it's just a way to disguise or rather to make us look smart in front of our client, maybe. But ultimately, there was a time when I was working in Brunei with delivery associates. We were fortunate enough to actually be allowed to be involved in the transformation of the education sector, and were given the full mandate to do so. So from strategy development all the way to the implementation. So from working with the minister and his team developing policies for education. We were also on the ground, in the schools working with teachers and students directly. So ultimately, one thing that and I guess one thing that guided us throughout the work, it was a very long project, but one thing that guided us throughout that work was that we always reminded ourselves that whatever that we do at the level of the ministry, at the level of the minister, at the level of policy making, if we could not see any direct changes happening on the ground in the classrooms, like a month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 6 months after the policies has been implemented, then the work is nothing. It doesn't mean anything. So whatever you do at that level, at the highest level, should be seen having a kind of impact on the ground, that the kids are learning differently because of what you implemented at the government level. The teachers are being trained differently because of what you're doing at the government level. So this kind of impact is extremely critical for us, as a consultant, especially in the public sector. You are being paid to make a difference. Of course, it requires a lot of political will as well together with it. I mean, I wouldn't say that everything that we try to do can be implemented. Sometimes they end up being a nice folder on the shelf, but when it does happen, then we do make sure that we deliver change to the people on the ground, and that's impact to us. On a more personal side, I guess, how do I want to be remembered? I think that's the second part, right? Or should I leave that for later? No.
Yeah, leave that a bit later. We're a bit short on time actually, and
sure.
now we're going to go into the Q&A session. I'd also like to point out that we are short on time, so maybe keep your answers shorter. Unfortunately, we have only time for one question. The question would be, how do you stay true to yourself in a world that demands you to adapt and blend in to survive? Seeing maybe Mr. Mustamir is a bit excited to answer that question first.
I think it's quite a tough question. I know that we've been talking about a lot of things today. So you're saying about how to keep true to yourself in a world that demands you to adapt and blend to survive. I suppose in this day and age, things will never actually go your way all the time. So you need to be able to adapt yourself in changing environments. Okay, but you need to have your own principle. If something that being asked you to do, it's not within your principle, I suppose it's easier said than done. You say that, okay, I mean, I'm not this kind of person, so I would just leave the company lah. But sometimes I mean, like, it's not easy to find another job just because you're upset with someone in the company, because sometimes it's not the organization, it's not the brand name of the company that is actually giving an issue to you, but it's actually the individual your superior above you, that's the one that you cannot actually work with. Okay, so some try to find a solution, because at the end of the day, you are leaving a company because you're not happy with someone, not because of the company. Try to talk to other people to find a solution, because sometimes there are other avenues within an organization to talk about things, especially when you are being asked about something that you don't believe in. But sometimes when you talk to someone else, they will be able to explain to you whether the things that's been asked to you is something which is reasonable or not reasonable. So that will be my take on this. Thanks, Tariq.
We would also really love to hear from Dato Khairussaleh.
What is the question again? It's about Tariq, can you repeat the question?
The question is how do you stay true to yourself in a world that demands you to adapt and blend in to survive? Maybe something about you being an introvert, and the world demanding more extroverts in the office.
No, I think it's again, if you do what you're supposed to do, and this one I also tell our people, right? It's about, you can always complain that this guy is not cooperative, that guy is not cooperative, right? This guy works in silo, that guy works in silo, but complaint doesn't help, right? And I always tell our guys that, okay, why don't you be the guy or the girl with the broad shoulder, right? Why don't you be the one who reaches out to the other party, right? To try to, take charge and take responsibility of the situation. It's always easy to say, hey, this guy don't help me. I don't like him, right? Can you help? But I said, maybe we should think differently. For you to again, be noticed, right? I mentioned that earlier. You must be different from the other guy. If you just complain, you're just like the other guy. So you must be different and be the guy who helps things to be solved, right? And that's how we see your material to become a good leader, right? And differentiate yourself from other people, right? So I always say that. And again, in my so that's one thing. And I think it's always trying not to triangulate, right? Because when someone complains to me, what irks me is that the other person that is being complained about is not around. So sometimes I've asked that person who complained to get out of the room, because it's not fair for you to do that because the other side is not able to defend, right? So if you want to do something like that, you must get all parties to be around, right? So that then we can discuss together, right? So again, if you can become the person who pulls everyone together, right, and try to resolve things, provide solutions or options, I think that's the kind of person that anytime we will maintain or even promote to become a leader very, very fast. Yeah, I hope that helps, Tariq.
Right. Finally, we have Puan Siti, and to remind again, we are a bit short in time actually right now.
I think that's been well answered by Cik Mustamir and Dato Khairussaleh. So I've nothing more to add to that. But I do believe that the world don't necessarily demand that you blend in, to be honest. Discover that part of the world. I think that's very important, because if you continue to think that the world always demands you to be such and such, then you don't have what it takes to be different actually. So find that differentiation from the world itself actually. Don't feel that it's demanding you to do something.
That brings us to the end of our second edition of the Captains of Industry Forum webinar for today. I'd like to say again, thank you to the speakers for making the space in their very busy schedule to meet with us today. I'd also like to thank to all the audience who have spent their Sunday afternoon with us, and to remind you again, if you want to have the the latest updates on Cemerlang stories and our articles and our webinars, do check out Cemerlang on Telegram, t.me/cemerlang.org. We are also present on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook with the same name. Thank you to the three speakers again today. Stay safe and
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're most welcome.
All the best
Thank
to
you.
everyone.
Yeah.
Assalamualaikum.
um,